Mother's Day had always been my favorite day of the year. Not because of gifts or flowers, but because it was the one day my daughter, Natalie, would sit with me, hold my hand, and remind me that I mattered. At least, that's how it used to be. This year was different. I waited for her call, the same way I had every year. Morning passed. Afternoon slipped by. My phone sat silent on the kitchen counter. Finally, I swallowed my pride and dialed her number. She answered, her voice sharp and distant, not the warm daughter I remembered. "Mom," she said coldly, "don't expect a seat at my table this year. You're not worth it." Her words cut deeper than any knife. My chest tightened, and tears blurred my vision. I wanted to ask why, but no answer would ease the pain. For years, I had given her everything, my money, my time, my love. Yet here I was, discarded like I was nothing. I hung up the phone quietly, sat down at my small kitchen table, and whispered to myself, if she won't give me a seat, I'll build one she can't ignore. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. After the call, I sat in silence, the sting of my daughter's rejection echoing in my ears. My hands shook as I reached for the phone again, but this time, I dialed Martha Green. Martha had been my closest friend since high school, the one person who always knew how to steady me when the world grew too heavy. When she answered, I couldn't hold back the tears. She told me I wasn't worth a seat at her table, Martha. On Mother's Day, of all days. Martha gasped. "And, that's cruel. After everything you've done for her?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Memories rushed in. Late nights working double shifts, paying Natalie's college bills, helping her buy her first home. I had poured my entire soul into raising her. "You're not worthless," Martha said firmly. "If she can't see your value, that's her blindness, not your truth." Her words wrapped around me like a warm blanket. For the first time that day, I felt a spark of strength rise in my chest. I wiped my tears and whispered, "Then maybe it's time I stop waiting for her table, and set my own." That night, sleep refused to come. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, haunted by Natalie's voice. "You're not worth a seat at my table." Those words looped endlessly, as if they had been carved into my chest. I closed my eyes and drifted into memories I once cherished. I remembered little Natalie holding my hand on her first day of school, too scared to let go. I remembered the nights she cried through heartbreaks, and how I held her until she slept. I even remembered pawning my wedding ring just to pay her tuition when money ran short. Every memory was proof of the sacrifices I had made, sacrifices she now pretended never happened. I had given her my life, and in return, she gave me shame. By morning, my reflection in the mirror looked older, tired, worn down by rejection. But somewhere in my heart, a tiny ember glowed. If my daughter could forget everything I had done, then maybe I needed to remind not just her, but the whole world, of my worth. I whispered to my reflection, "And Ronald, you are not invisible. Not anymore." And for the first time, I believed it. The following Sunday morning, I walked through the park near my house, letting the crisp air clear my thoughts. Families filled the benches, children laughed, and mothers received flowers from their little ones. The sight should have broken me, but instead, it stirred something deep inside. I realized that sitting in sorrow would only let Natalie's words win. If she didn't see my worth, then I would show her in a way that couldn't be ignored. Martha's voice echoed in my mind, "If she can't see your value, that's her blindness." I paused near a rose bush, running my fingers over a soft pink petal. A thought bloomed inside me. What if, instead of begging for a seat at my daughter's table, I created a table so radiant, so powerful, that even she would be forced to notice? If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. Not out of spite alone, but as a statement that my life had meaning far beyond her approval. By the time I returned home, I felt lighter. The sting was still there, but beneath it was determination. I grabbed a notebook, opened a blank page, and wrote 4 words that changed everything. My own Mother's Day. I stared at the words in my notebook, my own Mother's Day. They looked small on the page, but in my heart, they grew louder with every breath. If Natalie could exclude me from her celebration, then I would host something greater, something that reminded everyone who I was. The idea scared me at first. What if no one came? What if people whispered that I was desperate? But then I thought of all the years I had worked, cared, and given. I wasn't desperate, I was deserving. I picked up the phone again, not to beg, but to build. Martha was the first call. And, she said warmly, I'll stand with you. Whatever you need. Her voice steadied my courage. From there, I made a list of names, old friends, community members, women I had supported through the years. One by one, I dialed, and to my surprise, every response was the same, yes, I'll come. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. As the list grew, so did my confidence. This wasn't just about a dinner anymore. This was about reclaiming my place, not at Natalie's table, but at my own. By the end of the week, my notebook was filled with names. Some were neighbors who had shared meals with me long ago. Others were women from church, people who still remembered how I volunteered after services. I even added a few community leaders I had once helped when they struggled through hard times. Each name felt like a reminder that my worth didn't vanish just because Natalie said so. My story stretched beyond her narrow view. Martha came over that evening, carrying a basket of fresh bread. She flipped through my notebook and smiled. And, this isn't just a dinner. This is a statement. I nodded. It has to be. I want her to see what she threw away. We planned the seating carefully, making sure every guest had a place of honor. I even left one chair empty, not out of weakness, but as a symbol. A reminder of the seat Natalie denied me. As the plans took shape, excitement grew. For years, I had been the quiet one, standing in the background. But this time, I wasn't going to shrink. This time, my table would speak louder than her rejection ever could. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a hot cup of tea and sketched ideas in my notebook. I wanted the dinner to feel elegant but warm, something that showed dignity without arrogance. My table would be draped in soft colors, with flowers at the center, roses, lilies, and tulips, all symbols of life and renewal. Martha leaned over my shoulder, watching me draw. This is beautiful, Anne, she said. It's more than just a meal, it's a picture of your strength. I smiled, though my hands trembled slightly. Planning something this grand wasn't easy. But every detail mattered. It wasn't just about food or decorations, it was about telling a story without words. I pictured the room filled with laughter, conversations flowing, and people honoring one another. Most of all, I imagined Natalie hearing whispers in town, "Did you hear about Anne's banquet?" It was unforgettable. That thought alone gave me power. For once, I wouldn't be the forgotten mother sitting in the shadows. Closing the notebook, I whispered, she wanted me small. Instead, I'll stand taller than she ever imagined. And deep inside, I knew the table I built would change everything. With the vision clear in my mind, I knew the next step was finding the right place. My small kitchen table couldn't hold the kind of gathering I imagined. This table needed space, light, and presence. Martha suggested the community hall. It's big, affordable, and everyone knows it, she said. But I shook my head. I didn't want ordinary. I wanted unforgettable. So, I visited a nearby event space, an old mansion often rented for weddings. The moment I stepped into the grand dining hall, sunlight streaming through tall windows, I knew this was it. The polished floors glistened, and the air carried history and pride. The manager, Mr. Henry, greeted me kindly. When I explained my plan, he listened carefully. "Mother's Day dinner?" he asked. "That sounds extraordinary. I'll reserve the hall for you." Signing my name on the booking paper, I felt a surge of courage. This wasn't just planning anymore, this was happening. On the way home, I held the receipt in my hand like a badge of honor. Natalie's cruel words still stung, but now I had proof they wouldn't define me. The first stone of my new table had been set. With the venue secured, it was time to let people know. I pulled out my phone and began crafting invitations. I wanted them simple yet meaningful, each carrying a message of dignity. "Join me for a Mother's Day celebration," the card read, followed by the date and address. At the bottom, I added a line that made me smile: "Every mother deserves a seat at the table." Martha helped me deliver the first batch. We walked door to door, stopping at neighbors' homes, friends from church, and families I had once supported. Many faces lit up with surprise and joy. "And no one has ever done something like this," one woman said, hugging me tightly. Each acceptance felt like another stitch mending my torn heart. By the end of the week, nearly every seat was reserved. But news travels fast in a small town. One afternoon, while buying flowers at the market, I overheard two women whispering. "Did you hear? And Ronald is hosting her own Mother's Day banquet." I pretended not to notice, but inside, I felt proud. The whispers had started, and I knew it was only a matter of time before they reached Natalie. It didn't take long. By Friday evening, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I answered cautiously, only to hear Natalie's sharp voice on the other end. "Mom," she said, her tone laced with irritation. "What's this I'm hearing about some banquet you're planning?" I kept my voice calm. "It's true. I've organized a Mother's Day dinner at the old mansion. Everyone's invited." Silence stretched for a moment, then she scoffed. "Everyone? Don't tell me you're trying to compete with me." Her words confirmed what I already suspected. She felt threatened. That was never my goal, but I couldn't deny a quiet satisfaction stirring inside me. "I'm not competing, Natalie," I replied evenly. "I'm creating a table where no one feels left out." Her tone sharpened. "You're embarrassing yourself. People will laugh." I smiled faintly, though she couldn't see it. "We'll see." She hung up without another word. My hand trembled as I set the phone down, but not from fear. For the first time in years, I felt a shift. Natalie's table had excluded me. But mine? Mine was already becoming something she couldn't ignore. The night after Natalie's call, I stood before my mirror, staring at a woman I barely recognized. Wrinkles framed my eyes, and silver streaks ran through my hair. Her cruel words echoed again, "You're embarrassing yourself." For a moment, fear crept in. What if she was right? What if my banquet turned into a disaster, leaving me humiliated? I pictured empty chairs, untouched plates, and whispers mocking me behind my back. I sat down heavily, pressing my hands together. But then I remembered the voices of those who had already said yes. Martha's steady encouragement. The neighbors' excitement. The hugs, the smiles, the gratitude. That was real. I breathed deeply, smoothing my dress as though preparing for something important. "And Ronald," I whispered to my reflection, "you've carried others your whole life. Now carry yourself." The woman in the mirror didn't look weak anymore. She looked determined. I picked up my notebook and flipped to a fresh page. Instead of writing fears, I wrote plans, catering options, flower arrangements, seating order. Each word pushed the doubts further away. Natalie had wanted me small. But when she saw this table, she'd know, her mother was anything but. The following week moved quickly. Each day brought a new task, and I poured myself into the work. I met with a caterer who suggested roasted chicken, seasonal vegetables, and warm bread rolls. "Comfort food," she said. "It reminds people of home." That felt right. Next came the flowers. I chose roses for love, lilies for renewal, and sunflowers for hope. I wanted the table to speak even before I opened my mouth. The florist promised arrangements that would brighten the room and remind every guest of their worth. Martha helped me design the seating chart. At the very center, I placed the empty chair. It wasn't out of sadness, it was a message. A reminder that no mother, no woman, should ever be told she has no place. As the details came together, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: pride. This table was no longer just about Natalie's rejection. It was about reclaiming myself, about showing that my value didn't depend on anyone's approval. Each plate, each flower, each candle was a piece of my heart being stitched back together. For the first time, I wasn't just planning a dinner. I was building my legacy. By the middle of the week, word of my banquet had spread far beyond my guest list. At the market, women leaned close to one another, whispering about the old mansion being reserved. At church, I overheard someone say, "And Ronald is hosting the Mother's Day event of the year." At first, their voices made me nervous. But then, I noticed something different in the way people looked at me. Not pity. Not dismissal. Respect. Martha laughed as we walked together downtown. "You've started something bigger than you imagined, Anne." Still, part of me wondered how Natalie was taking the news. I hadn't heard from her since the sharp phone call, but I could feel her jealousy building like a storm. Later that evening, while setting silverware into neat rows, my phone buzzed with another message. This time it wasn't from Natalie. It was from Brian, her husband. "I heard about your banquet," he wrote. "Just know, not everyone in this family agrees with how Natalie treated you." I froze, rereading the words. For the first time, I realized I wasn't as alone in this family as Natalie wanted me to believe. And that gave me strength. I stared at Brian's message until my hands shook. He had always been polite but distant, rarely speaking more than a few words during family gatherings. For him to reach out now meant something had shifted. I called him back, my voice unsteady. "Brian, thank you for your message." He sighed heavily. "Anne, I can't control what Natalie says, but I can tell you this: she's furious about your banquet. She thinks you're trying to humiliate her. But between you and me, she's the one embarrassing herself." His honesty stunned me. For years, I believed Natalie's coldness reflected the whole family. But now I saw cracks in her control. "I don't want revenge," I said softly. "I just want to show I'm not invisible." "And you should," Brian replied firmly. "Honestly, I admire what you're doing. Maybe Lily will too. She deserves to see her grandmother's strength." When the call ended, I sat quietly, heart pounding. Natalie's rejection still hurt, but Brian's words felt like a small light shining through a dark tunnel. For the first time, I wasn't only building a table for friends and neighbors. I was building one that might remind my own blood who I really was. As the banquet drew closer, the mansion buzzed with preparations. Workers polished the floors until they gleamed, while florists carried in buckets of fresh blooms. Each table grew more beautiful with every touch: candles, linen cloths, and vases filled with roses and lilies. Martha walked beside me, her arm linked with mine. "And, look at what you've created," she whispered. "This isn't just a dinner, it's history." But late that night, alone in my room, nerves pressed against my chest. What if Natalie showed up just to mock me? What if guests felt uncomfortable? I reminded myself of Brian's words, of the neighbors' excitement, and of the dozens of confirmations that had already come in. Still, I left nothing to chance. I reviewed the seating chart, checked the menu again, and even practiced the small speech I would give. Every word mattered. By the time I set down my notes, I felt calmer. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be the forgotten mother standing outside someone else's table. I would be the host, the center, the one who chose to rise instead of bow down. And whether Natalie admitted it or not, she would hear of it. The mansion doors opened just before sunset, and guests began to arrive one by one. The air buzzed with laughter, warm greetings, and the clinking of glasses. Each woman who stepped inside carried a glow of excitement, as if they already knew this gathering would be remembered. I stood at the entrance, welcoming them with open arms. "Thank you for coming," I said again and again, my heart swelling with pride. For once, I wasn't the afterthought, I was the reason people had gathered. The table sparkled under soft golden lights. Candles flickered beside plates filled with roasted chicken, vegetables, and warm bread rolls. The floral arrangements filled the room with fragrance, and music played gently in the background. At the center of it all sat the empty chair, draped in a simple white cloth. Some guests noticed it and asked quietly. I simply smiled. That chair represents every mother who was told she didn't belong. Tonight, we honor them too. The response was powerful. Some nodded with tears in their eyes. For the first time in years, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt seen, deeply seen. And I knew Natalie's silence couldn't take this moment away from me. As the meal continued, laughter filled the grand hall. People clapped after my short welcome speech, and I saw pride shining in their eyes. Yet, no matter how joyful the atmosphere was, the empty chair at the center kept drawing everyone's attention. Some guests asked again, "Anne, who was meant to sit there?" I smiled softly. That seat isn't for one person, it's for every mother who has ever been overlooked, forgotten, or told she wasn't enough. The room grew still. Then, slowly, people began to nod. A woman at the far table wiped her eyes. Another whispered, "That's me." Martha leaned close and whispered, "And that was powerful." In that moment, I felt the strength of my decision. The chair wasn't just a symbol of Natalie's cruelty, it was proof that I had turned my pain into purpose. Then, as dessert was served, something unexpected happened. A small voice called from the doorway. "Grandma?" I turned, stunned. There stood Lily, my granddaughter, clutching a single flower in her hand. Gasps filled the room as she walked toward me, eyes shining with both love and confusion. My heart raced. Natalie had denied me, but Lily had chosen me. The room seemed to freeze as Lily crossed the polished floor, her little shoes clicking against the wood. She held out the FL. I knelt down, hugging her tightly as guests clapped softly, touched by the moment. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said, my voice shaking. "You don't know how much this means to me." Martha leaned over, whispering, "She came on her own?" Lily nodded at me as if she'd heard the question. "Mom didn't want me to come," she admitted innocently. "But I wanted to see you. It's Mother's Day. You're my grandma." Tears blurred my vision. Natalie might have shut her door, but my granddaughter had opened a window straight to my heart. I guided Lily to sit beside me, placing the flower gently in the vase near the empty chair. "Now this table is complete," I said warmly. The guests cheered, lifting their glasses. For the first time in years, I felt a love so pure it washed away Natalie's rejection. Lily had chosen me. And that choice was louder than any insult Natalie could throw. The next morning, whispers spread faster than wildfire. At the bakery, in the church parking lot, even outside the florist's shop, everyone was talking about the banquet. They spoke of the food, the flowers, and the way the mansion glowed with laughter and warmth. But the story that carried the farthest was Lily's arrival. People described how she had walked in with a flower, how she chose to sit beside me. The image painted itself into every conversation. Meanwhile, Natalie's dinner had been small and quiet. Guests compared the two events openly, some even calling hers dull next to mine. The more she tried to dismiss it, the more her embarrassment grew. Brian later told me, she slammed the door when she heard what Lily did. "She said you made her look like a fool." I shook my head gently. "I didn't make her look like anything. She chose her path. I simply chose mine." Still, part of me knew Natalie's pride wouldn't let her stay silent for long. My banquet hadn't just been noticed, it had shifted the balance. For once, I wasn't the forgotten mother. I was the one people couldn't stop talking about. It didn't take long before Natalie showed up at my door. She didn't call, didn't text, she just appeared, standing on my porch with her arms crossed and her jaw tight. Was it your plan to humiliate me? She snapped before I could even greet her. I steadied myself, refusing to let her anger shake me. It was never about humiliating you, Natalie. It was about celebrating the day I was told I didn't deserve. Her eyes narrowed. You stole my attention. Everyone's talking about your little event. They're comparing it to mine. I held her gaze. I didn't steal anything. Respect isn't stolen, it's earned. If people talk about mine, maybe it's because they felt love there. For a moment, her expression flickered, but she quickly hardened again. You've turned my own daughter against me. That isn't true, I said softly. Lily simply saw where love was given freely. Natalie shook her head, muttering something under her breath, then stormed off. I watched her leave, my heart torn between pain and quiet victory. I hadn't wanted a war with my daughter. But she had declared one, and I wasn't going to back down anymore. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing non-stop. Messages poured in, neighbors, old friends, even women I hadn't spoken to in years. They had all seen photos from my Mother's Day event. And you reminded us what real motherhood looks like. You showed such dignity. We're proud of you. Next year, we want to help host with you. I sat at my kitchen table, tears welling in my eyes. For so long, I had felt small and forgotten, as if Natalie's rejection defined me. But now, it was clear, I was not invisible. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Clark from down the street stopped by with a basket of flowers. We should have celebrated you long ago, she said warmly. You've given this community so much, and now it's our turn. Word spread quickly, and soon, people began calling my gathering the real Mother's Day table. My porch became a place of laughter and visits, while Natalie's home, though elegant, seemed strangely quiet. For the first time in years, I felt a shift. My voice, once ignored, was now louder than the one who had silenced me. By midweek, whispers reached me that Natalie was furious. Her Mother's Day photos had barely been noticed online, while mine kept spreading through neighborhood groups and beyond. People admired the warmth, the homemade decorations, and the joy in every picture. Natalie, always obsessed with appearances, couldn't bear being overshadowed. She called me again, her voice sharp. Are you enjoying this attention? Do you think it makes you a better mother? I stayed calm. I didn't ask for attention, Natalie. I asked for respect. There's a difference. You embarrassed me, she shouted. You made me look heartless. I sighed. I didn't need to make you look that way. You chose those words at your table, not me. There was silence on her end, heavy and cold. Finally, she muttered, You'll regret this, before hanging up. But I didn't feel regret. Instead, I felt stronger. For years, I had walked quietly, keeping peace even when it hurt me. Now, Natalie had to face the reflection of her own actions. The community no longer saw me as weak. They saw me as a mother who stood tall, even when her own child tried to push her down. 2 days later, I received a knock at my door. When I opened it, Lily stood there, Natalie's daughter, my granddaughter. Her eyes were full of conflict, but also determination. Grandma, she whispered, can I come in? I welcomed her warmly, offering tea. She sat nervously at the table, twisting her hands. Mom's been saying awful things about you. She's angry that people liked your Mother's Day more than hers. But I don't care about all that. I waited, heart pounding. She looked up, her voice steady now. I want you to know, I'm proud of you. I saw how much love was at your table. It felt real. I wish I had been there instead. Tears pricked my eyes. Lily, you'll always have a seat at my table, no matter what. She smiled faintly. Then maybe next year, I'll choose yours. Her words pierced me with both joy and sadness. Natalie had tried to erase me, but here was proof. love couldn't be erased. As Lily left, I felt a spark of hope. Natalie's grip was slipping. And in that moment, I realized, my revenge wasn't cruelty, it was showing a love that couldn't be denied. The next weekend, our community held its annual spring fair. I wasn't planning to attend, but neighbors insisted, saying they wanted me there. When I arrived, people greeted me warmly, offering hugs and smiles. It felt different, like I finally belonged. Then I saw Natalie. She stood with a group of her friends, her expression tight as she watched the attention circle around me. At first, she stayed silent, but soon her anger boiled over. In front of everyone, she shouted, "You're not some hero, mother. Stop pretending you're better than me." The crowd went silent. All eyes turned to her. I simply stood tall and replied, "I never pretended, Natalie. I just shared kindness where it was missing." Gasps spread, and whispers followed. Natalie's friends slowly stepped back, embarrassed by her outburst. She stormed away, her face red with rage. I didn't chase her. I didn't need to. For the first time, the community had seen the truth without me raising my voice. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about showing dignity, and letting Natalie's own bitterness reveal itself. And in that moment, I knew the final act of my revenge was near. Mother's Day had begun with rejection, but weeks later, I found myself seated at a much larger table, one that stretched beyond family. The community invited me to speak at the town hall, honoring mothers who had given quietly without recognition. As I stood there, faces glowing with warmth, I realized I no longer longed for Natalie's table. Mine was bigger, fuller, and stronger. Natalie showed up late, standing at the back, arms crossed. I didn't point her out or shame her. Instead, I spoke gently. A mother's worth is not decided by one seat, but by the love she shares. Love cannot be erased, hidden, or taken away. Applause filled the hall. For once, Natalie had no power, her silence was louder than her words. Later, Lily hugged me tightly. "Grandma, you'll never sit alone again." Tears filled my eyes. My revenge hadn't been anger or cruelty. It had been refusing to disappear. It had been choosing love louder than rejection. On that Mother's Day, Natalie told me I wasn't worth a seat at her table. Yet here I was, sitting at one she could never ignore, built not on pride, but on respect. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.